Good to go.
Yep.
All right. Well, hello everyone, and welcome again to this edition of MCA Canada's Toolbox Talks. This is a podcast for the Mechanical Contractors Association of Canada and its members. My name is Ken Lascastle. I'm very pleased to be speaking today with Guillaume Brisson of Milwaukee Tools. Guillaume, thanks very much for being with us today.
And it's a pleasure to be on. Thank you for having me. I'm excited about chatting with you.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this. Now, Guillaume, for those who don't know, he's the core trade manager for plumbing and mechanical at Milwaukee Tools. Guillaume himself, as well as Milwaukee, are big supporters of MCA Canada, big supporters of our members, as well as the industry. So, Guillaume, why don't we just kick things off really quick? Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your role with Milwaukee?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been with Milwaukee now for about 6 years, and really no previous experience in the industry of construction or plumbing, really. And I kind of followed a similar path to a lot of new employees with Milwaukee that didn't have any prior experience in the field. So the first year of my path essentially with Milwaukee was more on the retail side. So very, very, very similar to a lot of new employees. We manage a specific territory of big box retail stores. In our case, Home Depot is our big box retail partner, and then that's a great entry level role to just really learn about the business, about the products, about the customers, and then kind of transition then on to more of the industrial side, which is where we have a lot of focus, obviously, as well. So I did that for about a year in that retail environment. And then I moved on to, like I said, the industrial piece where pretty much I've spent that time since then. So the last 5 years, call it, been more focused around that channel. And I've done a couple of different roles as well within industrial. The first few years, I was what we call an end user rep. So essentially working in the field with some of our large contractors. In my case, was in the Montreal market. And really just focused on around supporting our large contractors in any way we can, whether that's with support in the field with product trials, service, loyalty programs, and that kind of thing. So that was a fantastic experience as well to learn more about that, large contractor business. And the last couple of years here, I've then transitioned to more of a specialty role within plumbing, mechanical. The first year and a half, I was a product specialist, again, covering the general region of Quebec. And then the last year here, I've been managing that team from a Canadian perspective. So I have a team of specialists across Canada that essentially focus around specialty products within plumbing and mechanical. And really our goal is to create user demand for those products by working hand in hand with contractors, end users, supporting our distributors, and obviously as well, working hand in hand with our industry partners like we do here with the MCAC. So it's been a great journey. Honestly, I have really nothing but great things to say about Milwaukee as an employer. I feel like the last 6 years have really flown by, so I'm excited to see what the future has. But it's been a ride, and it's been awesome.
That's great. And I think, what I also want to mention and tell the listeners before we really get into some more Milwaukee stuff here and some of the industry trends that we're going to talk about in a little bit is Milwaukee has very generously donated a giveaway to our podcast listeners. So later on in the show, we're going to let listeners know where they need to go so they can sign up to get a chance to win that giveaway. But did you want to let listeners know right now a little bit about what they have a chance to win from Milwaukee?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a new product we're really excited about. It's our new chain vise tripod stand, made to have up to 6-inch pipe. And it's really a product that's going to revolutionize that piece of the market in our opinion, because there hasn't been too much new innovations or new products within the current offerings in that space. So you guys are going to see just by the way that this stand easily folds, and the way it transports as well. It's really unique and different from what exists right now. So, we'll send a little bit more product information, but we're really excited about this new product, and it's actually starting to ship this month. So look out for that new product from Milwaukee here, specific to mechanical users.
That's great. So that's, very exclusive. That's a new offering. We appreciate that. I know the members are going to appreciate that, as well as the listeners.
For sure.
Now, obviously a lot of our listeners are going to be familiar with Milwaukee Tools. Those in the industry are familiar with the brand. The company itself, though, has a pretty long history, and I actually think to the first time I had a chance to get to the Milwaukee offices, when you walk in, you see a lot of history on display, and it's pretty incredible. So maybe let's take a quick opportunity before we jump into all this. Talk a little bit about that history of Milwaukee and how it got to you to where the company is today.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, most people probably know us for being the inventor of the Sawzall, which happened in the 50s. But our history goes back to, early in that, to the 20s essentially. And, a fun fact that probably not a lot of people know about is that we actually collaborated with Henry Ford in the 20s. Henry Ford was looking for a lighter, more portable drill for his assembly line. And he actually came to the founder at the time of Milwaukee and, asked if he was willing to, innovate and create a product that, suitable for their needs. And that ended up being what we call the hole shooter, which is a product we actually still, carry today. And the name itself, obviously the product has evolved, but the hole shooter is still something we have. It really was the first portable drill that could be used in an industrial, application that was you could actually hold with one hand. It only weighed 5 pounds, which for the time was incredible. So that's a pretty cool little piece of our history, which ties back to our kind of overall messaging of innovation, right? We're constantly trying to come out with new products, make products better, lighter, more better performance. So that's our history ties, I mean, over 100 years almost now, so which is pretty cool. But if I kind of fast forward to kind of our more modern history here, kind of ties back to our investments in cordless technology, which has been a kind of our focus for the last, call it almost 20 years now. We were actually the first power tool manufacturer to solely focus around lithium ion technology. That was back in 2005. And really at the time, lithium hadn't really proven itself. It was kind of a new technology. Nobody was really sure if it was going to be, able to keep up with the heavy, high demands of our industrial contractors. And we made that switch. We really felt that lithium was the future. I think looking back now, I think we made the right decision there. But at the time, you had different types of cordless cells, battery cells that you could invest in to have a cordless solutions. But we said, no, lithium was our choice. And, a couple of years later, we came up with our line of M12 and M18 cordless solutions, which are still today our current battery platforms. So we haven't strayed away from that voltage and that technology. We've just kind of improved on it through better batteries, better motors, better electronics. But since 2008, really, a customer who's invested in our platform, his investment has been sustainable and durable over time. So we're pretty proud about that. And today, in terms of M18 solutions, which is 18 volt, we have over 200 power tool solutions available to our customers, and over 100 on our smaller, more compact M12 line as well. So lots of innovation, but that's kind of the more recent history with Milwaukee, just kind of that shift towards focus innovations.
Yeah, I think we might get into this a little bit more later on as well. But on the topic of some of those cordless solutions that you're talking about, what's your message? What's Milwaukee's message to customers who might, be concerned about performance? Because you did mention it was such an innovative step to focus on lithium, certainly a decade ago.
Yep.
And to see these tools that they're used to either being gas powered, tools that are now going cordless.
Yep.
What's the message that you're sending or talking to customers about when you talk about those cordless solutions?
Yeah, good question, Ken. I think two-part answer there. I think one is productivity and being able to just walk on a job site and not have to worry about finding a power source, messing around with extension cords, which can also be a tripping hazard. You're ready to work right when you get on site, and that over time, contractors see the difference in the productivity, and essentially the investment will pay for itself over time. A good example of that is bandsaws. For the longest time, bandsaws were corded, and everybody wanted a corded bandsaw. They didn't believe in cordless bandsaw. They didn't think it would have the performance or the runtime of the battery life. And you walk into a large contractor's tool crib today, and you probably see quite a few corded bandsaws, in a cemetery essentially in the back where they keep the old tools, and everybody has a cordless bandsaw. So change takes time. It takes early adopters essentially, but we truly believe that the productivity pays for that investment over time. The second part to that is, the initial cost of acquisition is one thing, but the total life cost is another. So that's more of a against more gas type of equipment where you need to be purchasing fuel, oil. You need to be messing around with filters, spark plugs, and that kind of thing. So in case of the batteries, you're paying for that energy up front, which you recharge over time, right? But if you look at the cost of the tool over 5 to 10 years, we're very close, if not in the end, less expensive if you include the other advantages like productivity and the safety, advantages that I can speak to a little bit later on. But we're also big on trial before you buy with Milwaukee. So if there is an opportunity for a specific application or specific project where you want to be sure that this tool makes sense, that's certainly something we can facilitate as well. So we stand by our product, and we do that through trial and demonstrations a lot as well.
Yeah, I think one of the things you and I talked about prior to this conversation was Milwaukee is not afraid to be the last product on the market so long as it meets the performance requirements that Milwaukee is setting for that product. So
yeah,
you had an example. I won't talk about the product because I don't know it as well as you do, but you had an example about that recently where Milwaukee came to market. Certainly not the first, but the intention is to meet the performance or exceed.
yeah. Probably the product we've been most asked about in the last, call it maybe 3 years, a cordless lawnmower on our M18 platform. We just announced it recently that this spring we will have a 21-inch lawnmower available on our M18 line. And arguably, we were probably the last cordless manufacturer to come to market with a product in that category. But what we really wanted to make sure is that it would be just as good or exceed the performance of an equivalent gas current solution, which through our testing, we saw that our competitors couldn't say that. In our case, we actually exceed the performance on a equivalent gas mower, which would be a 200cc gas engine. And we have data, we have videos to prove it. So we feel very, very good about that launch. And that's just sometimes it takes more time to get there, right? So before we launch anything, we want to make sure that it performs or exceeds the performance of what's currently available. So that's very important for our new product, launch strategy for sure.
Right. No, I think that's I think that kind of answers the question too. When you're talking to customers who have questions about performance, is to look to examples like that to see what Milwaukee has done. And I think customers and members are also pleased to hear that try before you buy sort of mentality to get a chance to demonstrate. And hopefully, as things open up more across Canada and we're having more in-person events, our members have a chance to see some of those products in person and have a chance to try them out. One of the things you talked about earlier on, talking about your own history in Milwaukee, and I think is really interesting to get your perspective on this, is a big part of your job is talking to customers, talking to members about different solutions that might be available to them. So I do want to I want to ask you, from your perspective, what are some of the pressing issues that you're hearing from customers where Milwaukee's either trying to step in to help, or they're asking you for solutions?
Yeah, I would say the hot topic right now. I don't think this is going to surprise anyone, but it related to labor shortages.
Yeah.
How do we get around that? How do we raise the profile of the skilled trades and get more people to consider this as a career? And I think as a power tool manufacturer in the construction industry, we have a responsibility to get involved and do our part as well, right? Because we know that the success of Milwaukee goes hand in hand with the growth of the industry as a whole as well. So I got a few, we do that. We help to mitigate those issues through a couple of ways, and I'll touch on that in kind of two separate parts. The first one I would speak to would be through our investments in grassroots initiatives. And what I mean by that is really our engagements and activities with training centers and trade schools across Canada. And we have a team that's dedicated to these activities, and we refer to them as the field marketing reps across Canada. This team has been in place for about 5 years now, and just to give you some ideas of our metrics of how it's grown over time. It started with about six people in 2016, and by the end of this year, we will be around 35 individuals. That their main focus is being front and center with these new students, with these new members of apprenticeship programs, and just offering that engagement, that training, hands-on support, that they need to grow essentially in the trade. And that's very critical for us internally. That's a huge part of our strategy within the industry. So, growing from 6 to 35 people, that's a huge investment in human capital, right? I mean, everybody knows Milwaukee for the products, but I think something people don't know too much about is how much we invest in people behind all those products to support them and support the strategies. So those are huge investments that we've made. And, we're going to be at 35 by the end of the year, but it might be, even double that in the next few years as well. So it's not something that we're going to stop investing in. So, just to give you a couple of metrics as well, we have a goal of about 150 individual training centers or trade schools that we're going to be engaged with by the end of this year. And that's triple what it was a few years ago, I think 3 years ago. So a huge growth in the amount of facilities and individuals that we're getting in front of. I think we have a goal of about 250 individual training sessions we want to complete this year. So there's just a ton of activity in the field through this, through this team, and super proud to be working with those guys as well. And really what they offer is just a ton of training solutions, whether it's around tool safety, power tool basics, or maybe in some cases more trade specific solutions, right? When they're more specialty applications. And that's the training piece, but there's also a financial support piece where we support the training centers whenever they need to make an investment in tooling. And we want to do our part as well to make sure that, the investment is, is not only coming from them, but we want to invest in them as well. So that's important to us. We obviously sponsor competitions, skilled trades events, and that kind of thing to make sure that they have the required tooling to compete. Graduating students as well. We have some pretty cool programs if you're a new grad within one of these programs. So there's a ton of things that we're doing in the field. And something I want to mention too is that we recognize that the ROI on this type of initiative is very much long term. It's not something that we're going to see in our sales 6 months later or a year down the line. It's going to be 5-10 years potentially in the making, where those new students, they're going to become those those foremen, those superintendents, and those new business owners in the trade later on. And we recognize that. So we're not really looking at it from a direct ROI perspective, but more of a how much activity are we getting, how much engagement we're getting in the field. So that's a big part of our strategy, and that's one way certainly we're going to be able to raise the profile of the trades, and not really just linked to plumbing, mechanical, right? We're doing this through all the skill trades across Canada.
Yeah, we talk about that a lot at MCA Canada in terms of that. This skilled trades issue it's both a short-term issue, naturally, because we are facing a bit of a skilled trade shortage across the country, but it's going to require long-term solutions like that you're not necessarily going to see that ROI, as you said. It really is a commitment to raising the profile, getting in front of people who are not going to be in the industry in the next 5 years. It may be 10 years, as you said, but over time, and it's going to take time to help solve some of that skilled labor shortages we're experiencing across the country. So it's great to hear companies like Milwaukee and many of our associate members who are getting engaged at that level to raise the profile of the trades. And again, there's obviously a benefit to Milwaukee as well, getting in front of people like that. But it's great to see. Great to hear that you guys are taking that effort and putting the work in to build the profile of the trades across the country. So I know many of our members appreciate that. Um, you you talk about skilled labor being one of the issues, and you talked about productivity earlier on being one of the key issues that our industry is facing. So maybe you could take this opportunity, tell me a little bit about some of the products that you have in place right now that are helping to address some of that stuff.
Yeah, for sure. And even then, I'll kind of break it down into two kind of different ways we're helping to mitigate the labor shortages through our products. And the first one would be, new technology, making applications easier to complete in terms of the amount of labor needed and the amount of skill essentially needed to complete those applications. And those are kind of tied hand in hand with some of the other manufacturers in our space, specifically to piping methods. Companies like, that manufacture press fittings, for example, they're really shifting the need for having to solder, weld, thread connections, and really making it much easier in terms of the time needed and the skill needed on site to complete a pretty complex application. And obviously, from our perspective, we have the tooling lineup available for those specific applications. And just to give you kind of a statistic around press, it's up to 60% faster to complete a connection using a press fitting versus a traditional method, which is a huge time saver. And this ties into as well that initial investment piece that I was referring to. So if you're new to these newer methods, the newer technology of installing pipe, for example, you might see the materials cost be a lot higher and the tooling costs be a lot higher. But if you look at how much you're going to be saving on labor over time, you're going to see the benefits of considering and shifting your ways of installing, these new applications to these new technologies. So that's been one way. Certainly, we can help to mitigate that labor shortages, just having to being more productive in a different way of completing applications. Another great advantage of press in this case is the fact that if you are working on a service or shutdown type of job, you can complete this type of work with a press fitting if the system is still wet. So you cannot say that with a proper soldered connection. You need to wait for that system to be completely dry, which in certain cases can take hours essentially. So if you can go in there and do that within a few minutes, I mean, you're in and out, and you're on to the next job, and you're much more productive in that sense. So that's one way, kind of our specialty products that tie into new technology within piping. But the other piece that I really want to speak to is on the safety and ergonomics. Again, I think we have a responsibility as a tooling manufacturer to improve on that aspect for our customers. How can we make tools safer, lighter? So really, we keep them working longer. We reduce work injuries, job site hazardous situations. And ultimately they work more days in a year. They're in better shape. So in the end, we might have the same number of workers, but they're all more, they're all healthier essentially, which is something everybody wants, right? So I'll touch on a couple of different things, and I'll start with some features that we have on certain tools. And the first one is what we call auto stop. Auto stop is an electronic clutch control that are equipped on some of our tools that have a high torque, rotation application, essentially like a threading tool or a coring drill, and a concrete coring drill, for example. Traditional solutions really didn't have that rotation protection. So if that tool were to bind on the material, that tool would start rotating essentially on the worker, which could be extremely dangerous, can be even deadly. It's been proven that this can be a deadly situation. So we've added that electronic clutch control, which would make it much safer to use those those specific tools. Some other things, just like we have some bandsaws now that we call a dual trigger bandsaw. So you actually have to hold both handles and press a trigger on both handles in order to use it. So you're essentially keeping your free hand away from potentially injuring yourself. Rapid stop breakers on brakes on grinders is another one. So as soon as you let the trigger go, it's going to stop within a few seconds. And there's just a bunch of things like that, any tool that can be hazardous to that worker, we try to find ways around making it as safe as possible. The last piece that I want to talk to is our new line of MX cordless solutions. And this is more aimed at light equipment. It doesn't really fit into our current M18 or M12 solutions. It's really a new venture for us, focused around replacing mostly gas light equipment on job sites. And there's a ton of safety features around our MX line. And the first one is pretty obvious, but the fact that it's fully cordless, obviously no carbon monoxide emissions. The level of noise is significantly lower than if you compare to a concrete cutoff saw, for example, or a generator, a gas generator. We have now cordless equivalents of those types of solutions that really you've never had available before on a cordless platform. So making it, just if you're working in a confined space or indoors, for example, it makes a lot of sense to consider these new solutions. So, our MX line, we're just getting started. We only have a handful of solutions right now, but if you were to look on our 5 or 10 year timeline in terms of new products, this is going to be huge for us and our customers. We feel very strongly about that. And one specific tool actually within the MX line that I want to speak to is our sewer drum machine. So this is more for those drain cleaning applications. And if you look traditionally at a large drum machine with call it 100-foot cable, that's going to be 200 plus pounds easily. And, customers are having to lift that up on their own. And usually they're in and out of a job, out of a truck, up and down staircases and things like that. So that creates a lot of strain on the lower back and just on the body overall. And you're really requiring to have at least 2 people to complete this application. So we looked at that. We saw an opportunity to improve on what was currently in the market. So we now have what we call a lift assist, powered lift assist system, which we call our power treads. And it's really 2 tracks on the back of the dolly that's powered by the battery, which takes a lot of the strain off the user to actually haul that unit up and down. So we did some medical research, and we actually found that it was up to 70% less strain on the lower back than a current traditional solution. So a huge difference in health and wellness gains for our customers.
Yeah, and certainly I think even from a skilled labor perspective, again, you're talking about removing the need for extra labor for moving some of those tools around. Sounds like that might be part of the solution as well. And you did talk a little bit about sort of the OHS and emissions, which I also found interesting. The idea that fewer emissions in a confined space is obviously going to be a benefit to the workers as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think all great stuff. I think it's a good opportunity to, and stop me if we've talked about all this already, but are there, outside of those innovations, the cordless market, the MX line, the lift assist, are there any other unique or innovative products that Milwaukee is coming out with, has out on the market, that we may not know about right now, that members may want to hear about, that might be worthwhile exploring?
Yeah, I have one especially I want to talk about. It's a newer venture for us. We've only had this new, I guess, category available for a couple of years, but our line of PPE, so personal protective equipment, so anything related to ear protection, eye protection, hard hats, high visibility vests, just everything related to PPE. That's a space we're getting more and more involved in and serious about. And I think that just came naturally because we're already so engaged and invested with our skilled trades and our core trade focus with on these large job sites. and we were just spending a lot of time with companies that purchase a lot of PPE. So we were hearing their frustrations about what they currently were buying, and we saw opportunities to improve on what was currently available. So we did a lot of research on how we can improve on current solutions. And if you're familiar with Milwaukee's product development, we're not a lick and stick type of company where we would just take an existing product, stick our logo on it, and go to market. In that sense, that's not our approach. So we invested, in facilities, equipment, and people over $30 million through our U.S. R&D team, in specifically to PPE, product innovation. And we have over 100 people in the U.S. right now. Their only focus is around new PPE products. So we're very serious about this space. I'm excited to see where we're going to take it. But like I said, this is new for us. We started with about 15 different SKUs in PPE, and this year alone, I think we're going to launch between 200 and 250 new SKU items, and we're going to be around 600 by the year's end.
Wow.
Which is mind-boggling to think about. And the scary thing is that that's actually just the beginning when you look at our 5-10 year roadmap of new product. So I mean, I think once you look back at where we started and where we're at in 10 years, PPE is going to be a huge piece of our business. So very excited to see what we can achieve in this category.
So I took two things out of that. One is keep an eye out on the PPE market for Milwaukee, and then two is lick and stick, because it's the first time I've heard it, but I think it's fantastic, and I think it probably applies to more products than we care to know about that we buy on a regular basis. So
it's similar. In the last, call it 10 to 15 years, we've invested a lot in hand tools as well. And we saw at the time when we were doing kind of the same analysis where some of our competitors were doing that approach where they were just taking an existing product and essentially licensing it under their brand. And that's where kind of the lick and stick, slogan came. And I use it all the time. I think it's perfect to explain our strategy and, R&D.
It's easy to remember. It's catchy. I like it. It works. You talk about that sort of 5 to 10 years, there's a lot coming from Milwaukee. And taking it back to your perspective and talking to customers and what you see, because you have a unique perspective on this as well. Where do you see the mechanical sector going in the next sort of 5 to 10 years? Where do you see some of the stress points, I guess, but also how is Milwaukee going to be stepping up to help serve that market in that sector as it changes in the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, we recently did kind of a industry analysis internally, and something interesting that we learned was that we saw the industry revenue stream grow its share within plumbing to more of that service and drain cleaning piece of the industry. And I think that makes sense because, as we continue to build new construction, there's all that existing infrastructure that needs to be serviced on a regular basis, and even more so as it gets older and older, as well as those new buildings as well, right? So we're seeing that piece of the pie grow its share year over year. And I think contractors are going to consider it's not called the sexiest business to be in, but it is a profitable business if you have the right people and the right equipment. I think contractors are going to consider that to add to their revenue stream, diversify their activities, because it's also pretty protected from any economic situation. It's really an essential service, right? It's emergencies. It's required right away. So contractors maybe that are solely focused right now on new construction or just industrial mechanical applications, they might consider getting into this business as well. And from our perspective, I mean, if you looked at what we had 5 years ago in terms of products in this category, I think we only had one, and it was kind of more of a DIY, pretty light application drain cleaning snake. Fast forward to today, I think by the end of the year we'll have roughly 25 different tools and equipment that you can based off your application that you can choose from. So we have a pretty complete lineup within this segment that we can offer our customers. And again, all cordless, don't have to be messing around with extension cords or corded in tools. So people that are invested on our platform, they can simply essentially extend their investment to drain cleaning solutions as well. So we're really excited about, the potential growth in the category as well.
Yeah, and I think you raised that point about that economic safety of service and repair and maintenance, and we saw this at the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, just how important this service repair sector is. There was no question when it came to determining essential businesses that needed to remain open that
Yep.
service and repair contractors and construction was an essential service. It's vital to the health and safety of Canadians, both in where we work and where we live. So now seems like a good chance, because I don't want to get too far into this and all of a sudden forget that we did promise a giveaway. So good opportunity to tell listeners where they can go to sign up to receive that giveaway that Guillaume talked about earlier. Any listeners who have made it this far who are still looking to register to win, simply visit podcast.mcac.ca. There's a short registration form there. And once you enter all your information, just hit submit. You'll be registered to enter a draw for that prize giveaway that Guillaume had talked about earlier. So again, we want to thank Milwaukee for that very generous giveaway. And hopefully a lot of people have made it this far and are going to go online and register for that, because I think that's fantastic. And as I mentioned at the outset of this discussion, Milwaukee has always been a big supporter of MCA Canada and the members, and we are looking forward to, as we get into some more in-person events, seeing you guys again. I know we had a chance to see you last year at the golf tournament, Guillaume. So we're looking forward to hopefully 2022 being a little bit more of a return to normal. So with that being said, are there any other messages or topics that you want to share with MCA Canada that we haven't talked about already, Guillaume?
Yeah, actually, there's one thing I'd like to speak to, and it's our accessibility to after sales service. I think, we talk about, buying the product, using the product, but, in case that you need to have it serviced or repaired, what are the best ways to do so? And we actually just launched what we call our e-service platform. So essentially any customer across Canada can now go online on our website, and I can share that link with you, Ken, for your members. And they create an account. And just with a little bit of information, they can now print a shipping label directly from our website and ship that tool off to one of our service centers. And that's the other great piece of this, is that we now have 10 factory service centers across Canada. They're obviously in the big markets in every province, but there's most likely one factory service center in a pretty close proximity to where you live. And those are Milwaukee owned repair centers. They are employees, Milwaukee employees, so that they're not also selling product. All they do is really repair tools, and that's the focus. So we're proud about that new e-service platform, and I think it's going to alleviate a lot of service concerns that some contractors might have if they did decide potentially to invest, let's say, into our product line. So certainly something that's important as well is the downtime behind having tools. Is we want to make sure they're productive, and if they do need to be repaired, which is normal, make sure we reduce that downtime as much as possible. So yeah.
I think most of our members across the country have probably encountered their local Milwaukee rep at different events and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But if anybody's trying to get a hold of Milwaukee or doesn't know how to get a hold of you guys, what's the best way to get in touch with the local Milwaukee rep if they want to learn a little bit more, or maybe take an opportunity to try the products you talked about?
Yeah, I would say probably reach out to your local MCA contact, and whether that's the provincial entity or the national MCA. We deal quite frequently with you guys, so we can certainly work with your contacts and then be connected with those contractors. So I would say that's probably the easiest way to go about it.
Well, listen, Guillaume, I want to thank you very much for taking the time. I think there's a lot that can be learned from speaking to different companies in the industry who are serving the members, because as I've mentioned a few times, your perspective, your discussions always provide some unique insights into what some of the members are facing. And there's always a chance to learn a little bit more about, something else that's out there that they may not know about, myself included. So those conversations are so important. So with that said, I'm looking forward to hopefully getting a chance to see you again soon, at some in-person events, as I've mentioned several times already. But I also want to turn it over, say, I'll leave the closing remarks to you if there's anything else you want to add or say. But I will leave it with thank you very much to Milwaukee, to yourself for taking part in this. And hopefully we can do it again soon. So I'll leave the floor to you for any closing remarks.
Well, thank you very much, Ken. This was actually pretty. This was fun. Looking forward if we can do it again. And again, like you said, maybe some more in-person events this year would be great.
Yeah, maybe we can do this live one day too. We can
Yeah,
sit down.
that would be great. Yeah. Closing remarks. I mean, I guess I'll go back to kind of my first point on our investments in grassroots initiatives. I want to kind of make it clear to our contractors that we're investing in the industry and the future of the industry. So that's really important to us. And I just want to make that clear to our contractors that we're in it together. And some of those might not be Milwaukee customers today, but regardless of that, this is very important to us. And I think the other piece is just the investment they make in cordless Milwaukee product is sustainable. And we've proven that over the last 15, 20 years. We haven't come out with a new battery platform that's making what they own now obsolete. And for a new customer looking to invest in something that's going to be long term, that's super important. So I just kind of wanted to throw that out there as well, that we're not leaving customers behind, and that's again very important to us as well. So that's kind of it, Ken. As I said, this was fantastic, and looking forward to doing more of this in the future.
Yeah, this is great. And again, I appreciate you taking the time and Milwaukee lending you to us to have this conversation. And I think there's a lot that I've learned, and I think hopefully this has been of value to the listeners as well. And good luck to those who go online to register. And thank you again for that giveaway as well, Guillaume. So
right on, Ken.
take care. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. See ya.